Hello and welcome to this week's Culture Report. I'm Laura Casillas.
I'm DeMarco Randall.
And I'm Antonia Velez, and today we have a very special guest, wellness expert and psychotherapist, Dr. Heather Hans. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Welcome.
Thank you a ton
My
for
pleasure.
joining us. It's really, really great to have you here today.
Thank you. I love what you all are doing here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I've watched every episode, huge fan.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, we're excited to have you today and have this really good conversation.
Thank you.
We
Likewise.
are. And today's topic is very important. So, social media has become part of most people's normal, especially for younger generations. And if you're young and on social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram, you've probably seen posts like what I eat in a day videos and rundowns of the latest trends. And this can all be just for fun, right? But what happens when young people's algorithms are full of influencers going through the restrictive diets? What happens when popular filters change your facial features, or when ever-changing trends such as being a clean girl, a coquette girl, or a sade girl are centered around young women's identities? So today, Dr. Hans is here to talk to us about how social media can impact young people's mental health. I kind of want to start with these trends that I mentioned. So these trends are so changing at such a fast pace, and they're kind of telling women which ways of being are cool and which aren't. For a young woman who is trying to figure out who she is in her formative years, how might this impact them?
So much so, and like you said, especially in their formative years, because why do people follow trends? Well, it's fear of missing out, it's a sense of belonging, and that part's good. You know, you wanna feel like a sense of belonging, but it's also a belief in a fairy tale of the image that they're seeing. And most dangerously, it has to do with a lack of critical thinking. There's even something called slacktivism, where you jump on a trend bandwagon without doing research or actually even following it with integrity. And so what happens, the result is that these girls or anyone who follows these trends lose their identity. They lose their authenticity. They lose what makes them passionate and different and quirky and unique, that will actually make them more of a trendsetter than a trend follower.
And you were just touching upon also the eating disorders that this may cause. Kind of what about these videos that these influencers or some people that they might follow post of the what I eat in a day? What sort of impact do you think that might have? And it could be beneficial, but I could also see it as harmful.
Absolutely. So I wish it were taught in schools the things we need most: how to eat in a day, how to manage your finances, all of those things. But since it's not more valued, it seems, at this point in the school system, kids are learning on TikTok. And they're learning from marketing experts rather than health experts or nutritionists. So that's where that slacktivism comes into play, where it's wonderful to want to learn how to eat well, and I think everyone needs to do that, eat in a way that's going to make them strong and healthy, but you want to learn from experts, and you also want to learn what your own body needs, because everyone's different, and you kind of have to tailor your own diet as you go along in life and learn what you can from the experts, see what works for you, instead of just this one-size-fits-all. That's mental laziness is what it is. So you have to be willing to put in some work, but then it pays off because you have your health and you know that you did it yourself instead of just following a trend that could be harmful.
And I also think it's important that, like you had mentioned just a bit ago, that these marginalized groups can be affected by this the most in some cases. I think from my perspective, it might be because they might not have the same access that these people with thousands of followers, millions of followers, that many a times they'll get free stuff. They'll get stuff that they can get access to. But maybe these folks in these marginalized groups might not get that same access.
Absolutely. I mean, that's definitely the case as far as socioeconomic status. I do know that eating disorders can affect anyone on, all genders, ages, and sizes. But yes, the less resources a person has, the more they might have to work to get that information. But there's so much free content online now that you can find quality information too. So that's what I would say is look at the experts. Look at what is their history, what is their resume say, what have they helped people with, and just do that research first instead of just jumping on these trends. Yeah, because we know that the more, and in fact, spirituality is one of the ways that people can do this. That's transcultural, and all that means is really having a sense of purpose. And if you can focus on your own sense of purpose and doing what's best for you, and focus on all the different parts of your life and making them all as healthy as can be, that's what's going to keep you strong. And because following trends makes you kind of emotionally weak and dependent.
Oh, it's so harmful, like for younger generations that, are seeing this, it's, it impacts them and it impacts older folks like me, like I mentioned earlier. So I'm so happy that you're telling them, like, make sure you're paying attention to who's putting that information out there. I do love that because it's so easy to do a video ourselves. I mean, you can do a TikTok. I can do a TikTok. Anybody can, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely important to do that.
Yeah, totally. I think so too. And I spoke of this on 9 News last week, that they've actually done a new landmark study, 2 million people, finding that people's mental health status is what drives their online behaviors. So if you already have anxiety, and 2/3 of people with eating disorders do, that's going to create more of this kind of addiction to the fads and the social media and everything. So it's really about working on your own health first, and from there, watching your eyes becomes easier.
Wonderful.
Totally. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Hans, and sharing your knowledge with us. We really, really appreciate it.
So my pleasure. Thank you for bringing awareness to this.
And speaking of social media, Meta has sparked yet another controversy after creating a new feature on Instagram and Threads that limits the amount of political content users see on their platforms. This won't affect what people see from accounts they follow, but the company is cutting what they define as political and social topics from user-suggested content, which filters into their main feeds, explore pages, and recommended accounts. Users found this feature was limiting content by default, so they had to go on their content preferences and manually opt out of this setting. So a lot of people have been taking to social media to complain. Other people say that they're kind of fine with it.
Who defines what political stuff is? I mean, is this reproductive freedom? Is this like elections? Is it like a trans video that I'm watching? Like how do they determine that?
Yeah, totally. That's exactly the question that a lot of people are asking. And I personally, when I found this out, I mean, first of all, we did not know that this was going on. I think that Meta had announced it in February or something, but it was very on the DL, like it wasn't kind of talked about a lot. So people just noticed that this filtering feature was on by default, and they had to do that like by themselves to like opt out of it. So and my question that I'm asking is the same one you're asking, Laura. Who is defining what political and social content is? Like a lot of people define human rights issues as political content, and LGBTQIA+ issues. It's just really
it's scary.
Concerning.
It is. It is.
I don't know. I think for me, I think that I would have an issue with it if it was limiting the stuff that I was already following. From my understanding, it's limiting stuff that I'm not following, which sometimes when I go on social media, like I just want to see the stuff that I follow. Yeah. I mean, I know it's important also to have these other like news outlets or not even necessarily news, but information, like where these accounts can spread issues and spread awareness on stuff that might be going on. But in the same breath, I also am like, when I get on my social media, I just want to see the stuff that I want to see.
Yeah.
In a sense, when I first saw this story, my initial reaction was like, I'm very intentional about what I follow, who I follow, when I check out, my social media. So I was like, not a big deal because I'm still getting what I'm looking for. However, you did make a great point, Antonia, that you were like, I found Voto Latino on just one of those suggested pages. Yeah. So to your point, yes, there are things that maybe we're not seeing that we don't know that we don't know. So maybe there are outlets out there that are doing great work and we won't get to see them because somebody said, hey, this is political. You're not going to ever see it.
Totally. And for folks who don't know what Voto Latino is, it's basically just a news organization that talks about news that impacts Latino communities. And just like that account, there's accounts that talk about news that impacts so many other communities, like the LGBTQIA+ community, the Black community, the Asian American community, and also people who are telling stories that aren't necessarily news organizations. They're just diverse, or members of a diverse community who wouldn't have a platform or a voice sometimes had they not been suggested to a lot of Instagram users.
You need to leave a link on this, video, this story that we do about how people can actually change that setting, Antonia, because I couldn't figure it out. I needed you to go and show me, but I think during an election year, people should be able to see anything, and then it should be the other way around, where you're the one that says, I want to limit this. I don't want to see so much of it, but...
That was the thing that I didn't like. I had, like you had mentioned it, and I had no idea that was even happening.
Totally.
It's like they just went ahead and did it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of folks were like, okay, this is a little strange, but we'll see if they have anything to say after.
The Supreme Court heard oral arguments in the case that could limit access to a commonly used abortion drug. The FDA says mifepristone has been safe and effective since its approval in 2000. A group of anti-abortion doctors leading the legal challenge claims the FDA did not adequately evaluate the drug's safety risks. It is the first major reproductive rights case before the High Court since the repeal of Roe v. Wade in 2022. A decision is expected by the end of June.
And Florida approved a bill that would ban local mandates meant to protect workers from extreme heat, prompting many to call out lawmakers for being cruel to the most vulnerable workers. The Republican-controlled Senate passed the bill earlier this month, and if it's signed into law, it would strip cities and counties of the ability to require water breaks, rest, and shade for workers. Supporters said the measure will help establish uniform regulations, but labor organizations have said workplace heat standards are necessary to keep people safe, particularly those who work in areas like construction and agriculture.
The UN Security Council passed a resolution demanding an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza for the rest of Ramadan, a holy month for Muslims. 14 of the 15-member council voted in favor of the resolution. The U.S. abstained. According to NBC, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu canceled a delegation trip to the White House because the U.S. did not veto this resolution, like they have with similar resolutions introduced in the past. NBC reports Gaza's death toll is now higher than 32,000. The Israeli military said at least 247 soldiers have been killed since the start of the Gaza ground invasion.
The FCC is proposing a new national alert system they believe could help missing Indigenous people. It would be similar to an Amber Alert, but for missing and endangered people. The new alert would include people who do not meet criteria for an Amber Alert to be sent out. But it would especially help the Indigenous community because they are disappearing at an alarming rate. In 2022, Colorado rolled out a missing Indigenous person alert, but some say it's not working. Advocates in the state told 9 News reporter Delisa Irizarry that this system is not being utilized as it should be.
Statistically, we have found that one Native person goes missing a week in the state of Colorado. And that is also not addressing every Native person that has gone missing that did not get an alert. So again, it's a crisis.
Payment is a member of the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives Task Force of Colorado. She says while alerts come out, they're often days late.
Because it's never going to end, unfortunately.
Monica Snowbird, another member of the task force, shared the same sentiment back in January.
When my own son was missing, it took them 6 or 7 days to issue his alert, and they were supposed to do it within 8 hours.
An FCC report pointed out that Native Americans are 2.5% of all missing person cases, despite making 1.2% of the U.S. population. The FCC will seek public comment on the proposal before moving forward with a final vote.
And in New York, an executive order is requiring any teams, leagues, or organizations seeking a permit from the Nassau County's Park and Recreation Department to expressly designate whether they are male, female, or co-ed athletes. The executive order was supported by Caitlyn Jenner, who came out as a transgender woman in 2015. The order makes any teams designated as female denied permits if they are allowed transgender athletes to participate. It does not apply to men's teams with transgender with transgender athletes, it covers all Nassau County-owned facilities, including ball fields, basketball and tennis courts, swimming pools, and ice rinks.
Now, here's some rather bleak news for the United States. So the newest World Happiness Report's out, and according to Gallup, the U.S. lost its spot as one of the 20 happiest countries in the world for the first time in the report's 12-year history. With that being said, though, Americans over 60 are still doing well. The U.S. is still in the top 10 for that category. For the country as a whole, though, the U.S. ranked 23rd, 8 spots lower than it ranked on the last report. That's sad. But for folks under 30, the U.S. ranks 62nd. That's even more sad.
And there's a school in Bogota, Colombia that is teaching some men how to better share household duties. Since 2021, the Care School for Men teaches attendees to change diapers, handle a tantrum, braid hair, and how to be better husbands, brothers, and sons. The city's authorities believe the initiative will help tackle the country's machismo culture. Colombian women are disproportionately in charge of household chores and of raising children. This gender care gap is not only present in Latin American countries. According to Pew Research, in the U.S., women also pick up a heavier load when it comes to household chores and caregiving responsibilities, while men spend more time on work and leisure. Guys, how are these gender roles in your homes and growing up?
I feel like, well, I'm from Colombia. I grew up there. My family's Colombian. And I feel like it was a very unspoken thing, but it was very much there. I think when it comes to Colombia and a lot of Latin American countries, religion is so tied into everyday society and, like, you know, gender norms and all of that, in a way that's like, you know exactly what a man is supposed to do in the home and outside of it, and you know exactly what a woman's supposed to do as well. And so you kind of grow up with these expectations of, this is who I should be as a woman, and this is who, you know, my brother and my father should be as men.
It also, I think, gets to the point where it kind of gets joked about a lot too. Like, it just becomes accepted, like in my household, I guess, or like in my background, like males go to work and females kind of like stay home and take care of the children.
Clean the house.
Yeah, I'd say so, I guess. But also, like, I think it's so important to have this sort of class to kind of break that norm and to kind of like, to get this side for men to maybe get the first time of that sort of exposure.
Absolutely.
You know, and it also, I think, would also enrich in that experience, I feel like.
Well, first, I have a couple thoughts. My first thought is, it amazes me that they are learning basic life skills.
Totally.
Like, they should, you know, be able to take care of kids if they have like brothers and sisters, or if, you know, their mom can teach them like how to take care of the house, how to do the dishes, how to express emotion. It's okay. You don't have to be so tough. But the other part is, if you guys don't know who Isabel Allende is, you guys should follow this author. She's an author from Chile, but she talks a lot about feminism. And she made a couple of great points. She said, you know, feminism, it's not like hate towards men. It really isn't. It's more of a thing of like being equal. So that's her first point. And also, when we think of machismo, we think it's only bad for women. But it's actually very detrimental to men too, because it puts this pressure on them. It's like, you have to be financially responsible for the home. You have to be aggressive. You cannot show emotion. I mean, if you're macho, you can't cry. You know, all these things. And I think that pressure, DeMarco, that has to be hard too on men.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't just make women a second-class citizen and the victim. Like, it's also putting a lot of pressure on men. Have you sensed any of that?
I mean, I would say definitely it puts a lot of pressure on men to not only fulfill that role, but to like detach themselves emotionally sometimes. You know, it's seen as weak sometimes for a man to show their emotions or for them to care for a child. I don't know. To do those like feministic things. And to kind of go along the lines of what you were saying, like feminism, it's not, oh, men are worse, men are so much bad. It's literally giving us an equal playing field and to giving us this equal opportunity that men have had access to for their whole lives.
Totally, and I mean, it's family, right? I mean, people, both caretakers, whatever their gender may be, should be taking part in raising their children, keeping the home, you know?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be just one person's job.
Sorry.
No, I think like another like avenue that this might also affect is exactly what you were saying, like that household dynamic that, you know, traditionalist household, but also going to where those gender roles are not the same as how they've always been.
Yeah, there's got to be a culture change, because I tell you, I was mad when I would see my brother. We would all have to like do his laundry for him and, you know, make sure he ate. And I was like, wait, what? Like, how is this just like a woman's role? He should be learning these basic things.
Okay.
Like, how are we the ones that have to do this?
To be fair, I do my own laundry and I do cook my own food.
Do you, DeMarco?
I do think, though, that like this kind of calls for a broader conversation of gender norms, because it's not just like gender norms within the home. It's like gender norms, like what are women supposed to be like, and men. It's not just who does the laundry, who does the dishes, who goes to work. It's more so just like what behaviors and traits and characteristics do women and men expected to kind of embody. And I think in that sense, and also in the household chore inequality, division vibe, the U.S. still, I mean, not just in Latin American countries, in the U.S., like we have a ways to go still.
Yeah.
Seriously, even here in the U.S., as I was growing up, I remember like seeing even stores gender girls and boys. Like, here's the easy bake for the girls.
Yeah.
Like, really, like
the
all
little
the
pink toys for the girls,
or the dolls and all.
cars,
Taking
you know, I have my race
those.
cars and my little
and
soldiers.
the tools.
Why couldn't we be adventurous? We could have had girl tools.
Give me some tools.
Seriously.
Or some blue tools.
But
That's very true.
Yeah, just to end on it, I
true.
still think, you know, there's some advancement, and I think the U.S. is doing better. They're still, you know, giving a heavier load to women, but I think they're doing better and making, you know, things a little more equal. But I still think it begins at home. It has to be a culture change, at least for like Mexico in my case, Colombia in yours, and, you know, where is your family from, DeMarco?
I would say the United States,
Is
but
it
so
really?
like my grandparents are from El Paso, Texas.
Okay, so
and then my mom was born in Colorado, and I was born in Colorado.
Awesome.
But I would say their descendants would be either like Spanish or Mexican.
Very machistas.
Literally. So we're all in the
We
same.
are.
We're all in the same boat, rowing the same.
All right,
you know?
well, let's take a look at this week's good news, because we got to move from that.
All right, well, reality TV is getting more diverse. 26-year-old Jen Tran will make history as the first ever Asian woman to star in the show The Bachelorette. Tran, who is Vietnamese American, said in an interview, quote, "Anytime Asians were in the media, it was to fill a supporting character role, to fulfill some sort of stereotype, and I always felt boxed by that. Tran's season in The Bachelorette is set to roll out this summer."
And the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor recognizes individuals who have had an impact on the American society in ways similar to Mark Twain. Kevin Hart's long body of work was recognized at the JFK Center for Performing Arts, from stand-up comedy starring in Hollywood films, making us all laugh, and entrepreneurship. Mr. Hart has truly impacted the American society.
And Denver is making a bid to host the Gay Games in 2030. The city was a top 8 finalist back in 2022, and now it's among 25 cities worldwide asking to host the games. The Gay Games are a week-long competition for LGBTQ+ athletes from all over the world. They're similar to the Olympics, with competition in track and field, wrestling, and bodybuilding.
That is so awesome.
I'm
I'm so
so
excited
cool.
for the Gay Games, guys.
You know what? I found out that they had them in 2023 in Mexico.
Really?
Yes, that really surprised me, because
That surprises me as well.
yeah, because it's a very macho,
I know.
area.
You know, but I love that.
Yeah, me
As
too.
they should.
Yes, they should be more inclusive, so I love that too.
Yeah,
It's a great
totally.
idea.
Yeah.
Oh, guys, this was awesome.
This was so awesome.
It was,
All right.
it was so great to have our guest.
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
totally.
such a fun show. We missed him all. We'll see him
We
next
missed
week.
him
We'll see
so
you next
much.
week,
See you next
though.
Jamal, we missed you.
Yes.
And we'll be back to continue the conversation next Thursday right here on our free 9 News Plus app and on 9news.com.